4% in 1 year. All right, time for the Hannity Hotline.
Mr. Hannity, every time I watch your show, I get a migraine. I mean, I just see your face, and I get a migraine. And when you start talking, it becomes blinding. You're a lunatic.
Blinding migraines? Every time I open my mouth, I kill kittens? Wow. This is tough on my ego, but you say nice things about Laura Ingraham. Call us 877-225-8587. Let not your heart be troubled. We'll never be the Destroy Trump media. 11 o'clock tomorrow night. Hello, Laura Ingraham. By the way, thanks for coming out in the cold and hanging out with us here in D.C.
I heard
you're in the comfort of the studio.
Yeah, you're out on the roof. You better watch out. One of those Hannity hate line people will come and throw you right off that roof, Hannity. I wouldn't be on that roof if I were you. You look great in that shot.
Great.
That was very flattering.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate your kind words. How come you got all the good hotline calls and I don't get any? That's so unfair.
Well,
it's my hotline.
All you need, Sean, it's very simple, is a personality transplant, and you're going to be totally fine.
Hey, Laura, I have something to say before you. Go. Ready?
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Oh yeah, fine. All right, Sean. Thanks a lot. Welcome to the Ingraham Angle from Washington. It's too cold on the roof for me. I'm not going on. The heaters don't work. Willful blindness to Trump's triumphs and how the FBI and DOJ can stop the bleeding. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Think about how reporters would handle things under this hypothetical. Hillary Clinton, not Donald Trump, won the presidency in 2016. Now, I realize that's terrifying to contemplate, but bear with me for just a sec. Now, imagine that Bill is too old to chase interns, so she isn't distracted by any new scandals. And somehow, during her first year in office, Hillary oversees a stock market rocketing up. There's a big drop in unemployment, including among minority workers. And imagine this. Imagine consumer confidence, business investment, even wages in certain sectors, all up. Imagine Hillary announcing that dozens of American-run businesses are bringing jobs back to the United States. They're doling out $1,000, $2,000 bonuses to thousands and thousands of employees. And let's just say that Republican leaders respond to this news by calling that money crumbs, and it's all just a gimmick. Meanwhile, imagine President Clinton renegotiating important trade deals and taking unilateral action to level the playing field for American manufacturers and workers. Now, by the way, I actually remember when both Hillary and Barack Obama were running for president in 2008. And back then, they both sounded a lot more like Trump than Trudeau on NAFTA.
You will notify Mexico and Canada NAFTA is gone in 6 months.
We will opt out of NAFTA unless we renegotiate it. I
think actually Senator Clinton's answer on this one is right. I think we should use the hammer of a potential opt-out.
Does anyone even remember that? I do. Now, imagine Hillary Clinton targeting illegal immigrant criminals, felons, who are endangering their mostly Hispanic neighborhoods. Imagine if, thanks to the military planning under Commander-in-Chief Clinton, we had smashed ISIS and driven them out of Syria. Well, we all know, on the economy especially, what the press and the Democrats would be saying. And it wouldn't sound like this.
The American people are deeply concerned about the decline of the American middle class.
Republicans need to look in the mirror, think about the damage that they are causing to the middle class, our economy.
President Trump consistently points to one highlight, a strong economy. It was a good year, but maybe not as good as President Trump wants you to think.
Oh, Chuck. Amazing. Now, not that liberals care. They not only don't, give Trump credit for his policies or any reworked trade deals or moves on deregulation. Yes, there are actually some Dems even trying to give Obama credit for all of 2017's good economic news.
He thinks sort of history started from the day he became president, when in fact, he inherited good conditions.
I thought Barack Obama did to turn around the economy, to bring it back from the precipice and ask for some tough action.
Mr. Trump inherited an economy that was in full recovery for blacks and whites from President Obama. Now he's taking credit for picking up somebody at the end of a trip that somebody else drove the trip.
Somebody else drove the trip. I don't even know what he's talking about. And to add insult to injury, even while business leaders do credit Trump's tax cut with economic growth and all the deregulation, what's the big business story of today? Well, here it is. A new Reuters poll claiming that just 2% of Americans have gotten a raise, a bonus, or other benefit from Trump's tax cuts. Okay, kids, here's a lesson from Laura. You usually get a benefit from a tax cut when you pay your taxes. Now, everyone is going to benefit except for upper income earners. Hello. And from the Trump tax plan, and they're going to see more money in their pockets come April when most people pay their taxes. Most people don't pay quarterly. And so we're going to see if at that point Reuters runs another poll just to see if people are happier or benefiting. Now, a far more telling survey from the National Association of Business Economics finds that companies say sales and profits rose at the end of last year, and nearly half of the respondents say they're now paying more in wages and in salaries to their employees. This is news that we've been waiting for and that will benefit workers long term. It's about time people had a raise. Now, I promise you, if Hillary Clinton had had this record, the praise would be deafening on the eve of her State of the Union. Meanwhile, the media spent the day blaming the real president for the voluntary resignation of FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe.
The president played this very active public role in pressuring the Justice Department to get rid of McCabe.
So far, the White House is saying the president was not involved in this, was not pushed at all. Jake, it seems hard to believe that.
This is yet another instance of the president bullying and pressuring law enforcement agents who he's concerned about investigating him.
Is anybody safe in the Justice Department?
Oh, my God. Is anyone safe from media bias at NBC? That's my question. Here's the only problem with that lovely little scenario they painted. There's no evidence to indicate that Trump is responsible for the McCabe resignation. And do we really want a deputy director of the FBI who's so afraid that he has to resign if he's totally in the right? Of course we don't. White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said this.
Can you say definitively then that the president did not play a role in Andrew McCabe stepping down?
Yes, I didn't say the president wasn't part of this decision-making process.
Now, a more likely theory, I think, is that McCabe himself, along with his previous boss, Jim Comey, are actually to blame for this early retirement. Now, given McCabe's partisan ties via his wife to Hillary's, best friend, Terry McAuliffe, well, he shouldn't have been within 100 yards of either the Hillary email or the Trump-Russia investigations, not with that close tie. Remember, McCabe's wife received a $500,000 donation from Terry McAuliffe's PAC for her failed political campaign. Now, given this, he should have removed himself or recused himself from both probes. And there is a New York Times report tonight suggesting that FBI Director Christopher Wray was concerned about the findings of a forthcoming government investigation into the FBI and into McCabe's conduct. That's the Inspector General's report. And the Times source said that the director and McCabe had a frank conversation about that report, and apparently a demotion was discussed for McCabe. Now, whatever the explanation for McCabe's departure, I say this: it's about time. Now, there's a larger point being lost in the McCabe blame game. The president is actually trying to restore confidence in law enforcement institutions that I think for a long time have been used as political instruments. There are a lot of great rank-and-file people, of course, the overwhelming majority. But when the leadership appears to have a political axe to grind, nobody is served by that. So it's time to cleanse the upper tiers of the Justice Department and the FBI of all partisanship. It's critical. Sessions Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein may be the next one on the chopping block. He reportedly reviewed and approved that FISA application to surveil the Trump campaign, and we understand it looks like it was based on that phony Clinton-funded Russian dossier. And, of course, anti-Trump partisans, Jeannie Rhee and Andrew Weissman, should be immediately terminated from the investigation as well, before any more damage is done to the credibility of both the FBI and the Justice Department. And that's the angle. Joining us now for reaction from Minneapolis is John Iannarelli. He's a former national spokesperson for the FBI. And here in Washington is Joe diGenova, a former U.S. attorney for Washington, D.C. Joe, your reaction to the McCabe departure and the media from the moment the story broke on all the other cables and on NBC, CBS, ABC tonight, it was Trump to blame.
Well, to blame is McCabe, and to blame is Comey, and everybody else at the senior levels of the FBI. This is quite a disgraceful moment for the Bureau. As someone who has worked with the Bureau for over 30 years, I'm truly saddened by the fall from grace of everybody there. But make no mistake about it, this was a plot to exonerate Hillary Clinton illegally, and then if she lost the election, to frame Donald Trump with an illegal crime. This is the Bureau, much worse than the late Hoover period when they were spying on domestic groups. This was the weaponization of the FBI for political purposes by all the people at the upper echelon of the Bureau. And I think it's really time for people in the other party who seem to make nothing but excuses for the senior people at the Bureau and the Department of Justice, may I say, to kind of wake up and see that what's coming now is a federal grand jury, and it's not going to be pretty.
John, you represented the Bureau in the public domain, and you're the spokesperson for the Bureau. Your reaction to the day's developments and the effort to blame Donald Trump for the early retirement of the deputy director.
Well, Andy McCabe had been talking for some time that he was looking to go on terminal leave and exit the Bureau. I think that was hastened as a result of the director just yesterday going to the Hill, looking at the information that went into this dossier. But I will tell you, no president, whether it's Trump, Obama, or anyone else, tells the FBI what to do. The FBI is independent. They are there for the people. And to think for a minute that a sitting president would be able to push out a deputy director, that goes against everything the FBI has stood for the past 109 years.
Yeah, well, did you speak to McCabe a few weeks ago?
I happened to be at headquarters a couple of weeks ago and chatted with him briefly.
And what did he say?
Well, we didn't talk about him possibly leaving. At that time, he was in the office while the director was out on other business. So essentially, he's the man in charge. It seemed to be business as usual. However, everybody in the Bureau knew that McCabe's days would be running short because of the history. It was time for the Bureau to move on with a clean slate and get back to the work that the FBI does.
All right. And, Joe, I mean, he wanted to leave in the spring. The IG report is coming out in the spring. But it's a wild coincidence if indeed the FBI director strolls up to Capitol Hill on Sunday, reads this very short report, 4 pages, and then it just so happens that Monday, oh, McCabe's like, you know something, I'd rather go skiing in Breckenridge for the next 2 weeks. I'm not going to be doing this work any longer.
Well, according to the New York Times and the latest publications, Christopher Wray was shocked on Sunday when he read the 4 pages. Now, first of all, if that's the case, where has he been since he was sworn in? There is enough evidence on the public record
before that,
with the information from the Inspector General and from the Hill with the legal release of documents that it was clear that Mr. McCabe and others had engaged in highly improper, probably illegal activity in the FISA court stuff, along with the dossier from Christopher Steele. So, first of all, McCabe should have been gone a long time ago, and so should Strzok and Page and all the people involved in this. This is a dark moment for the FBI. It's going to take a lot for them to recover from this.
We had Jim Comey tweeting after the McCabe news came out. He's tweeting quite a bit. It's very poetic, his tweets.
Yes.
He said, Special Agent Andrew McCabe stood tall over the last 8 months. He always makes height references, Comey. I wonder why. When small people were trying to tear down an institution we all depend on. He served with distinction for 2 decades. I wish Andy well. I also wish continued strength for the rest of the FBI. America needs you. John, what do you make of the Comey tweet?
Well,
small people.
I will tell you.
Tall people. He's 6'8", by the way, Comey. Go ahead.
Obviously, McCabe is part of Comey's legacy. Now, Andrew McCabe did a lot of good things in the Bureau during his career, but it doesn't matter. When you're doing something wrong, that is the time that it has to be stopped immediately. I had some very good agents that made an unfortunate mistake along the way, and they were summarily dismissed from the FBI.
John, he was the guy to whom Peter Strzok reported, correct? That's how it went down. And McCabe could have, Joe, we're almost out of time, McCabe could have used just one of the regular field office set of investigators to do both the Clinton and the Trump investigation. These are professionals who could run this thing and run it right. He chose to put together this team, correct?
Yeah.
It's not an unfortunate mistake.
Comey was a dirty cop, and unfortunately, he dirtied up everybody else around him.
All right, gentlemen, we also have a huge development, by the way, in the Russia probe. A House committee, of course, has begun investigating the investigators. Up next, we're going to talk to a congressman who voted tonight to publicly release that memo that could spell big trouble for both the FBI and DOJ. Coming up. Huge news tonight from the House Intel Committee, which voted this evening to publicly release that bombshell, we hope it's a bombshell, FBI, a FISA memo, I should say, alleging serious surveillance abuses by top officials at DOJ and the FBI. Now, President Trump has 5 days to decide whether he has any objections to releasing this classified memo. Adam Schiff, the top-ranking Democrat on the committee, is wasting no time expressing his outrage.
Today, this committee voted to put the president's personal interest, perhaps their own political interest, above the national interest.
We also learned tonight that the Intel Committee has opened an investigation into the DOJ and the FBI. And joining us now to discuss these developments, Congressman Chris Stewart, a member of the Intel Committee from Utah. Congressman, great to see you. When can we expect this memo to be released?
Well, I would love it released tonight. I think
it's in your pocket. Get it. I want that memo. Pull it out. Come on. Let's go.
Hopefully soon. I mean, it's important for the American people to see this, and I don't think the president will delay. I hope he doesn't.
This is what Mark Walker, your colleague, a Republican from North Carolina, said earlier today. Let's watch.
If your audience or if somebody's believing that this is the end-all smoking gun, it isn't. Does it name names? Does it present some very intriguing facts, as I would share that makes you ask even more questions? To make the case that this is the most shocking document in the history of mankind, I believe that's a little hyperbole.
Are you guys engaged in hyperbole, Congressman?
Well, I can tell you I haven't been. Now, some people have, and we've actually cautioned against that. But this is an important document. It's very important for the American people to know that. And I think there's two things worth saying here. One is the process. I mean, I listen to Mr. Schiff, and my head just wants to explode. I mean, look, these are my Air Force wings. My father was an Air Force pilot. I mean, to accuse us of saying we would endanger national security is just silliness. And this memo doesn't do that. But what it does do is it asks these questions. Was the FBI fair? Were they accusations? They've been called traitors. They've been called treasonous for more than a year now. Did the FBI make those kinds of accusations against innocent people with laughable evidence? That's the kind of things this memo will address.
Congressman Gates from Florida has been on our air, been a frequent guest on this show. And, I mean, to listen to Congressman Gates, this has just got barn burner of a memo. And I think people have gotten their hopes up that, you know, there's this guy is going to go and then this person's going to lose his job and maybe this one's going to go to jail. And I always find that Republicans tend to, be bad storytellers.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I'm worried about that, as are other congressmen to whom I've spoken in the last 48 hours.
Well, we've tried to get some people to kind of temper their language. But you know, and I can't speak for what everyone has said, but this memo is very factual. It's not emotional. It doesn't draw any conclusions. It just lays out the facts and lets you draw those conclusions.
All right, Nancy Pelosi spoke about an hour ago, and I know you haven't seen it, so this is a gift for you. Let's watch.
They have made up a memo that isn't even true, and they're lying to the American people.
So what are you going to do about it?
The Republican Party has, as I said, crossed over to cover up. They're deadly afraid of the Russia investigation.
Wray got the director of the FBI, obviously, recently selected by President Trump. He got the memo. He could have come out and said, this is reckless, don't release it.
With all due respect, You really don't know what you're talking about right now.
Wow, she even gave it to Chris Cuomo. That was pretty good, right up on the roof here.
I would like to know. I would like to know if she's been down to read the memo. We have members.
Has she read it?
I don't know. I can tell you there's only. Well, yeah, there is. We know, and there's been about a dozen.
Go find out for us. I want to know.
But we had members of the Department of Justice over the weekend who were saying it was reckless to release this memo when they had not read it. They didn't know what was in it. They were making accusations that they had no knowledge of, and I think that...
What about Sessions and all this? Jeff Sessions, what has he said? I mean, he's the head of the Justice Department in which the FBI resides. So is he... Or he's just not going to come because it's Russia. I've recused myself from all things related to Russia, which I still don't understand.
Well, and that's one of the great disappointments. I think Jeff Sessions was one of the most decent, honorable men in Washington, D.C., but...
Shouldn't have put Rod Rosenstein. Huge mistake as deputy.
But I would say, but he's recused himself from one of the most important undertakings that we're engaged in.
You can't recuse yourself. You're going to be Attorney General of the United States.
And I've said to him, sir, I wish you would not have done that. But because you have, I think you have an obligation to step aside and let a department be led by someone who will not step aside.
So you're saying Sessions can't lead this department under these circumstances?
I've said that. I've said in the past. It's just unfair for him. It's unfair to what we are trying to accomplish.
Are there other people who agree with you more than the few that we've seen quoted publicly?
I think there's some.
I love Jeff Sessions. First of all, I think he would have been a great DHS secretary. For some reason, this fit. I'm concerned about. He's great on immigration, so good on some of the enforcement, gang stuff. He's great on frankly, the marijuana enforcement, which I think is good to give discretion to the field offices. But this investigation, I'm sorry, was a fraud from the beginning, should never have been undertaken. Rod Rosenstein, wet himself when he went over to the Hill. If he's worried about answering questions. He's like, I'm going to appoint a special counsel. I'm sorry, but that just doesn't inspire a lot of confidence.
And so I agree, and I agree. He is one of the most decent men. And look, these accusations that he was deceptive in his testimony, that's just nuts. Anyone who watches that knows he was answering the question as he understood it. But unfortunately, this city chews up good people sometimes.
Yeah, well, it does chew up good people, but that's why you can't be recusing yourself and naming Rod Rosenstein as your deputy. Thank you, Congressman. We look forward to the release, and if you can give it to me before the end of the hour, I'd appreciate it. As Congress, by the way, struggles to find an immigration solution, another big deal for you guys, there's already a great plan in the Senate that would address all the pressing problems. Really? One of the authors of that bill, Senator David Perdue, joins us with the details next. Congress has a March 5th deadline to hammer out an immigration plan before DACA protections expire for about 800,000 of the so-called Dreamers. Democrats rejected President Trump's offer last week of amnesty for nearly 2 million illegal immigrants in exchange for border security and legal immigration cuts. But another plan exists that should be put on the table. Republican Senator David Perdue is one of the men behind it. He joins us now with more. Senator, always great to see you. I see I run into you at an event on Saturday, and I said, you better come on the show, and here you are, so thank you. So you and Tom Cotton, in my view, came up with an original idea that kind of, in some ways, mirrors what was going on in the Hill with Goodlatte and Mike McCall. And it was focused on the 800,000 DACA people who are not kids. They are adults now, for the most part. And then you did the chain migration, end of that, end of visa lottery. And then, like three or 4 days later, suddenly it's at 1.8 million. How did you go from 800 to 1.8? And was that thought process because you needed to pick up a few people?
Well, it's great to see you again, Laura. You know, a year ago, you had Tom Cotton and myself on here, and we started then with a very conservative approach to this to solve the legal immigration problem once and for all. And we warned about the diversity lottery, and we said we needed to end the chain migration. And so what we've done now, the president has laid out, I believe, a framework that's ingenious, because we're going to find out if people are really serious about solving this immigration problem on both sides. And I think we got the framework to actually get it done now, finally.
My listeners are livid, I have to tell you. I've done this on the show for now the last 3 or 4 days.
Yep.
And like, well, when did he campaign on this? And my point is, if you want cuts in legal immigration, which is the big number, 1 million green cards every year, most of those are based not on merit, but on extended family ties, aunts, uncles, cousins, twice removed. Everyone's coming in.
Right.
Need to do it that way. But look, I'm not an amnesty person. I think it hurts people's feelings and sensibility who've been waiting in line for a long time. What do you say to those Americans who are upset, and then the people waiting in line who played by the rules?
The president has really laid out, he wants an end to DACA. And what that means is that He wants to provide certainty. They're not going to get in front of anybody. But what he's also done is given the conservatives of his party what he promised them he would do. A safer, secure border with a wall. He wants to end chain migration, which is the most insidious part of this. It's what's caused us to be here. And then we know we have a security issue with the diversity lottery.
Chain migration, I've got to play this for you. Kristen Gillibrand, who's going to run for president in 2020, yeah. She's already kicking off her campaign, practically, on The View this morning on chain migration. Let's watch.
I think a lot of President Trump's rhetoric is racist. And let's be very clear. When someone uses the phrase chained migration, it is intentional in trying to demonize families, literally trying to demonize families and make it a racist slur.
You know, Laura, it's very interesting. They were out of touch when they tried to shut the government down. The Schumer shutdown was so out of touch with America. But the idea that the term chain migration was created by Lyndon B. Johnson. I think he was a Democrat. Bill Clinton also called for an end to chain migration when he and Barbara Jordan wanted to go to a merit-based immigration system like Canada and Australia. So this is nothing more than Democrats revealing how far out of touch they are with mainstream America. Look, 2/3 of America wants to end chain migration, end the diversity lottery, fix the DACA problem, and build that wall and make our border secure.
By the way, she kept saying chained.
Yes.
She's changed the term to be an ED at the end of chain.
Totally.
These are some of the polls, America's view on immigration. 65% want a DACA deal with strong border security. Right. 68% oppose the visa lottery. 81% want legal immigration reduced. That's always the case, whether it's a Gallup poll or the Harvard-Harris poll that just came out. And 61% think current border security is inadequate. But you have people like Steve King, who was on my show on Friday. He said this.
The numbers are just stunning to see that President Trump has proposed 1.8 million amnesty to illegals. I think that this will demoralize so very many of his supporters. And how do we get back now to a place where we need to be with this?
Well, the answer is very simple. Keep our eyes focused on the prize, and the prize is to end the problems that got us here in the first place: chain migration, diversity lottery, and that porous border we have with Mexico.
And no more amnesties after this? This will be the last one?
Well, this is the idea, is to end the creation of the problem that created this crisis in the first place.
They're going to make you go up to 3 million, 4 million? Well, I'll say 5 million. Is it going to keep going up?
Well, no, but if you do nothing, it's going to be 7 million or more. That's what people don't realize. This is an opportunity to stop this once and for all.
You think the Democrats are going to get enough Democrats to support this?
Well, we're going to find out, you know, if they're really serious about solving the DACA problem.
They don't want to give you a win on DACA, Senator.
No.
They don't.
But we're going to find out.
Senator Perdue, thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura.
And by the way, a stunning new example and the contrast in the media's treatment of Melania Trump and Michelle Obama. You don't want to miss this. Next. Now check this out. The media have bombarded us with stories suggesting that First Lady Melania Trump is acting like a woman scorned. CNN, for instance, turned it into Melania Gate and declared the First Lady has gone AWOL.
Especially these past couple weeks, she's been laying low.
Well, I would think so, because, of course, there have been some cringe-inducing stories in the first few weeks of this year.
We can only look at those clues, like last Saturday when she posted on Twitter the anniversary of the inauguration with herself and sort of a military escort from that day, not her husband, no mention of her husband.
She was scheduled to travel to Davos with the president, but canceled that trip at the last minute. Yesterday, she left for West Palm Beach, Florida, and was back on the plane late today. Now, we don't know the reason for the trip.
Not moving to the White House immediately was unprecedented. You know, 5 months after he moved in, she moved in. And then, of course, you know, the fact that...
Oh, my God. My next guest believes Melania Trump, get this, actually despises her husband. That's what Sarah Beauchamp wrote in an article on the website called Nylon. She wrote that today. She joins us now from Philly. Okay, Sarah, you look like a very young woman, very accomplished. You're a writer. You've written all sorts of stuff out there for various publications. How is it, being a feminist, for you to question another woman's lifestyle choices, whatever they are, whatever she decides to be? Why are you passing judgment on them and questioning them?
I don't think I'm judging Melania's life choices.
Well, to be fair, I guess I would judge a woman who would choose to marry Donald Trump. He's truly a disgusting human being. I think that's like a nonpartisan issue.
Yeah, that's not just judging at all. Yeah.
That Donald Trump's disgusting. I think it's pretty much fact.
Look at the camera, by the way. Look at the camera so our listeners get the full Sarah here. Go ahead.
I think that Donald Trump is disgusting. I would say that is a fact. But yeah, my story was more about how it wouldn't be surprising if a person married to Donald Trump was disgusted by him. I personally can't imagine a worse person to be married to than Donald Trump. So a lot of us are speculating that she's miserable.
Right. But let me just get this straight. You're a reporter, and you're writing about Melania Trump as if she's a political actor here. And you said that that's a fact. That you said Donald Trump is disgusting, that's a fact. Well, you're a writer, so you know when you use the word disgusting, that's a subjective statement, is it not? It is not a fact. It is a fact that he's president of the United States. It is not a fact that he's disgusting. You and your liberal friends who sit around talking about how awful the country is under Donald Trump, yeah, you see, I grant you that, you think that, but how are you to judge another woman's choice about a relationship, and did you do the same? For instance, when Hillary Clinton stood by her man, when Hillary Clinton decided to fire or not fire someone who had sexually harassed or reportedly sexually harassed someone on her campaign staff, were you making judgments about that, or you reserve it for Melania because you think her husband's disgusting?
Well, I wasn't covering the Clintons. I was too young for that. With the most recent thing with Hillary, of course, I would criticize her for doing that.
Was her husband disgusting?
Who? Bill Clinton? Well, first of all, you just continuing to be like, what about these Democrats is not really an argument. I mean, you should be able to speak critically about the Trump administration. I mean, your whole segment has just been talking about Democrats and what they're covering.
No, what I'm trying to do, Sarah, is like, okay, it's fine. You're a liberal and you don't like Trump. That's fine. But to write something about a woman's decision to, travel to Davos or not travel to Davos, you make this wild leap of logic without any factual underpinning that I know of, and yet you carry yourself off. So, oh, it's a fact that this is. What's the fact? What's your evidence?
It's my opinion that he is gross, and I can't imagine being married to him. I'm sure she.
Well, I don't think anyone cares whether you want to marry him or not. He didn't ask you to marry him. It's like, who cares whether? Like, there's a lot of people you probably wouldn't want to marry.
You care about my opinion of him because I'm on your show right now, so you can't care about my opinion.
I'm trying to understand how a woman like you, who carries herself off as a feminist, tries to get in the mind of another woman. Maybe that's her decision. It's her decision to believe what she wants to believe and live the life that she wants to live. Maybe she thinks it's the best thing for the country. Maybe she's wildly in love with her husband, but like all of us are disappointed with people at various times. Maybe you have the whole thing wrong. But as a woman and as a feminist, why are you questioning other women's choices? Aren't you pro-choice?
First of all, good one. Being a feminist does not mean that you're not critical of women. That you know that that's not what it means. You know it means equality for all genders. That's exactly what feminist means. It does not mean that I have to be nice to every woman that I meet. Melania is complicit in an administration that has been abhorrent as of now. I mean, racism has gone up, anti-Semitism has gone up, anti-LGBT sentiments have gone up in this country. She's complicit in a pretty gross administration. My article was about my opinion. I think he's disgusting. I can't imagine being married to him. And all the pictures we see and her swatting his hand away are not evidence to the contrary. It kind of looks like she's disgusted by him. That's what my story was about. All we have to go off of are the images and videos that we see.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating.
And so
did you ever comment?
She looks pretty gross out. If they're happy, good. I hope she is happy. I mean,
I'm sure you do.
Must find something attractive about
I'm sure
him.
you hope she's happy. Sarah, did you comment at all about Michelle Obama spending an extra 3 weeks in Hawaii in 2014 after that unfortunate, deal with the, selfie at the Mandela funeral? Did you write about that or think about that? Like, she spent 2.5 weeks, something like that, after that little episode at Gayle King's. You don't remember that?
Yeah. No. I don't remember Obama being in the headlines
Did you remember that
paying $130,000 in hush money to a former porn star
after
she spent the magazine in a hotel room a few months after his wife gave birth to their first child. I forgot that story about Obama.
Yeah, I guess that might pass as logic for your generation, but you want to remember what you want to remember.
Like that, Michelle would have avoided him for a couple days. You never know. We will never know, because there's literally comparing this administration to nothing that's come before it.
Sarah, I have one question. Are you going to give back the tax cut that you get because of this abhorrent, horrible president? Are you going to give it back to the Treasury to fund some liberal program, or
I don't
save
think
a
it's
snail
too much
darter?
of the American people to ask for a decent man as their president and someone who can give them a tax cut. I'm not greedy for wanting both. We can want a decent person leading the free world in addition to being good at business. That's not too much to ask.
All right, Sarah. Well, you have a lovely evening. And Hillary Clinton's embarrassing cameo at the Grammys and their award-winning hypocrisy when we return. Now, you just knew that last night's Grammys would have more anti-Trump politics and the Me Too moments than, of course, music. At least that's the way it seemed. And the public responded by tuning out in record numbers. Yet somehow it did not strike organizers as hypocritical to feature a cameo by Hillary Clinton, arguably the worst enabler of a sexual abuser that we've ever seen in public life. Well, of course, she targeted the president doing a mock audition for narrator of the recent anti-Trump book.
He had a long-time fear of being poisoned. One reason why he liked to eat at McDonald's. Nobody knew he was coming, and the food was safely pre-made.
That's it. We've got it. That's the one.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
The Grammy's in the bag?
In the bag.
She looked great there. Well, this is the woman, by the way, that the Grammys lionized. So just last week, we learned that Hillary protected a senior campaign aide, her faith consultant of all things, in 2008, who was accused of sexually harassing a female staffer. This despite the fact that some on her senior staff wanted him fired.
There was sexual harassment involved, that the young woman was very credible. And my recommendation to the senator was to fire her. And I was overruled.
She overruled you personally?
I was overruled, yes.
Well, let's examine this breathtaking double standard with Monica Crowley in New York, senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. And here in studio with me is Michelle Jawando of the Center for American Progress. Michelle, take it away. It's the Me Too moment at the Grammys and Hillary Clinton, who wouldn't accede to firing a sexual harasser.
So, I mean, I think with